we'll stop digressing as usual and go into today's subject of wastewater wisdom. And this is quite a biggie. We haven't talked about this for a while. I wouldn't say we've been putting it off, but we're finding the right time to talk about it. Because as we learn more about the subject, it means we can then talk more about it, which is, of course, nutrient neutrality. So it's quite a big bit of legislation that's currently affecting sewage treatment plants and the market in today's kind of climate, I'd say. But we've got the expert. We've got the resident expert on all things wastewater treatment.
The resident expert, not the expert.
You're the expert. You are Mr. Wastewater, David. That's what I hope people don't call you. Anyway, what is nutrient?
Many other things, but not that.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Wastewater is not quite. It doesn't really hit the bells, does it? But anyway, David, what is nutrient neutrality for those that don't know?
So the general principle is the idea behind nutrient neutrality is to reduce the runoff of domestic foul water. You could also incorporate other types of water, but mainly the focus is on foul water from developments, whether it's been new, old, ones that are potentially just being converted, basically to help protect the environment. So if you are increasing the nutrient runoff, so the amount of flow, the type of flow, whether it's more concentrated, type of foul water from a development, you need to find some way to firstly reduce that. That can be on site, or you could look at ways to offset it using other means away from the site. The general approach, of course, is to reduce first and then offset later. And primarily here at Graph, of course, we are very much in favour of, and the systems that we offer is the reducing element to it. So by incorporating an on-site wastewater treatment works, we can significantly reduce the nutrient runoff from the site through the biological process that a wastewater treatment plant offers. A wastewater treatment system will only get you so far, though. It's a very good controlling layer we can implement and basically give customers an idea of how much treatment efficiency, performance, reduction levels the treatment plant will offer, and the remaining amounts will need to be usually offset in some way. That this could be offset away from this particular development. So you could look at purchasing land and implementing some forestry land for growth of other living animals and things like that, or you could look to upgrade various other systems that are currently discharging into the same water network. So if you've got if you're discharging into quite a large river, for example, that has many other systems connecting into it, if you've currently got systems connected into it which aren't meeting the legislation, so like some people may still be using a septic tank to discharge into a river, of course, you basically can support that development in upgrading their septic tank to a treatment plant, therefore running the nutrient runoff, for example, and of course you then gain credits against your own system. Offsetting is looked at as the thereafter to try and make up the difference, to try and make your own developments nutrient neutral. So that's kind of generally how it works. The reason why we generally need to look at nutrient neutrality is, of course, the impacts on the environment. So we do mention this quite a bit on our rainwater harvesting topic, but wastewater treatment is right up there alongside it. And really, it's protecting the environment, the ecosystems. So with the runoff of the nutrients from the foul water, so we've got all sorts of different compounds within the water. And mainly we talk about nutrient neutrality is the nitrogen compounds and the phosphates. These have a very positive impact in terms of certain living plants in and around rivers. And by the promotion or growth of these plants, it very much inhibits the other living organisms and living animals in and around that area as well. Of course, you've got the aquatic life as well. So the idea, of course, is to basically not have a further impact in terms of new developments going in and reduce where we can. We do need to remember, of course, that humans have been on this planet for quite some time now. We have been using and discharging foul water into rivers for a silly amount of time in history. And of course, if you think about farming and agriculture as well, when we talk about the fertilizers and sprays they use in their crops to promote their growth, that of course will steadily run down into a stream as well. So that has a significant impact as well. So we're a bit more mindful now of the impacts that we are potentially having. Certainly in the last 20 to 25 years, there's been a huge increase in terms of the technology, in terms of foul water treatment. So really, it's coming to light now that's the impacts that humans are with an ever-growing population. Certainly on the environments, we need to try and do what we can to protect it for the future generations to come.
And when we say nutrients, we're very much talking about stuff that's in the wastewater, so phosphates, nitrates that are causing algal blooms in watercourses. This is how it's all come about.
Yes, so it's the promotion of particular plants like algal blooms, which live in and around waters that will basically inhibit the life of the living things. So they'll basically steal the oxygen from the water, meaning that fish won't survive, and then other plants, anything in and around that will struggle to use that water. And of course, for discharging foul water, which has got all sorts of microorganisms and bad bacteria and stuff in it, into these watercourses, it's going to have a very detrimental effect in terms of not only potentially promoting the phosphorus and nitrate levels, but of course with those microorganisms basically damaging the other living things within the water as well. So there's always, the more you look into it, there's more and more that you uncover in terms of how detrimental it can be to the environment.
Because as you can imagine, you've kind of talked about it there with farmers using sprays that are usually heavy in nitrogen to help with the promotion of crops. Is if you look at it as the nitrogen kind of runs off, say from the rain, runs off into the streams and into watercourses nearby, nitrogen is going to basically have the same impact on aquatic plants as it's going to be on crops. It's the fact that it's going to boost their growth.
Yes.
In order for them to grow, they need oxygen. And what they're going to do is take oxygen from the water and obviously starves living organisms of oxygen in it, which has promoted their growth and is destroying ecosystems. And this all started in around the south of England, correct?
It was firstly noticed in Europe, and then from the study that was in Europe, it was then brought up by Natural England in the southwestern side of the country, and it's now slowly growing from there. So it's kind of gone very much now into Wales, and it's slowly expanding across the Midlands and potentially further north. So
as they start to see what's actually happened,
the impact it's having,
because they're identifying, oh, this is a problem, but now they're thinking, this is what's caused it.
Yep. So they originally discovered it through the growth of algal blooms, as you said. And by noticing a prolific growth of a particular organism, they thought, hang on a minute, what's happening here? They've done a study into why it's been happening, and they've deduced that it is the fertilizers and the nutrient runoff from developments which are going into rivers, promoting the growth of this particular plant, and then that's basically damaging the environment. So by any new development which is in a local area, a protected area, we'll need to really look at some way to enforce a nutrient neutral development. So they will get approval to continue with their development and build and get it completed. So it is a kind of a little bit of a pushback in terms of the development of new buildings and technologies, whether it's be on existing farmland or there might be some new urban developments. It really is quite a big pushback in terms of the growing business environments, certainly down in the affected areas.
Because when we've talked about, obviously, say there is pretty much two stages. There's the reduction and the offsetting. With reduction, it's very much using bolt-ons like phosphate and nitrate removal packages with our treatment plants. Is the one step, but when it comes to offsetting, what are the usual ways that a development may go about that?
So I did briefly touch on that. It's generally it will be off-site, but it will be kind of linked into the same water discharge network. So would this be a large river, but like the Thames, for example? But the idea, of course, is that any water that's been discharged into that river, you can look at finding out in the local area other systems that are discharging into that water network and improve their efficiency. So they could already have a treatment plant in place, but you could look at incorporating a way of reducing the nutrient runoff through, as you said, potentially specific treatment modules to reduce the phosphorus and nitrogen. It could be that they have septic tanks, as I said, and by upgrading from a septic tank to a treatment plant, we're effectively reducing the nutrient runoff by a minimum of 50% through any wastewater treatment system, whether it be one of our own or whether it be a competitive plant. But of course, you can go quite a bit further with SBR technology, just to the level of control we get within the treatment plants and the large batch reactor space we have for the aeration process. Basically, with the biological process, the bacteria living it, they will absorb the phosphorus into themselves if they've got a very good working environment. So having a very good oxygen level that you'll get from a large anaerobic system will help the bacteria absorb that phosphorus. And of course, if they absorb the phosphorus, there's less in the discharge. And likewise, because with SBRs, we can change the oxygen level within the treatment plant for small amounts. We can basically allow for the breakdown of the nitrogen compounds, so the nitrates and nitrates, to form nitrogen gas. Of course, that's then emitted into the atmosphere, and that again, of course, is no longer in the water network. But I'm going quite into depth now. You've got me going, so well done. But yeah, the idea, of course, with the wastewater treatments, we have the accessibility to really break down these compounds within the treatment plants on site, and then we can then look to the off-site means of upgrading existing systems, or potentially looking at installing tertiary treatments. So you could look at like a wetlands rebed. You could look at building forests in your local environments to offset for the compounds that you would otherwise be putting into the water course.
Perfect. I believe we've gone into quite a bit of detail about nutrient neutrality and covered it very well. So thank you for that. I knew you were going to get going, but about 10 minutes you've spoken about it. So it's not a record, but we knew we'd get you with that one.